The crisp autumn air bit at my skin as I loaded the last of our gear into the truck, the dense forests of upstate New York stretching out like a promise of escape. My stepson, Bryce, slammed the passenger door with a grunt, his broad shoulders tense under his flannel shirt, eyes avoiding mine as they had for months now. But that night, huddled in our shared tent against an unexpected storm, a simple brush of hands sparked a confession that would shatter our fragile family facade forever. I never imagined my life would veer into this territory. At 45, I was the picture of suburban stability, a high school history teacher in a quiet Buffalo neighborhood, married to Sarah for 8 years after her divorce from Bryce's biological father. Bryce had been 12 when we met, a skinny kid with a mop of dark hair and a guarded smile. Now, at 20, he was a college junior studying environmental science, home for fall break and reluctantly agreeing to this father-son hunting trip I'd planned to bridge the growing chasm between us. The drive up was silent at first, the radio filling the void with country tunes that neither of us particularly liked. "You excited?" I asked, glancing over. Bryce shrugged, staring out at the passing trees. "Yeah, sure. Beats sitting around the house." His tone was flat, but I caught the undercurrent of something unsaid. Sarah had encouraged this trip, saying it would help us bond like real family. Little did she know how prophetic that would be. We arrived at the campsite by midday, a secluded spot in the Adirondacks where the leaves blazed in reds and golds. Setting up was efficient. Bryce had always been handy, pitching the tent while I unpacked the rifles and supplies. As we hiked into the woods that afternoon, the tension eased a bit. We talked about his classes, his part-time job at a local conservation group. "You're doing good, kid," I said, clapping his back. He flinched slightly, then smiled. A real one, rare these days. But as dusk fell, the sky darkened ominously. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and soon rain pelted down in sheets. We scrambled back to camp, soaked and laughing despite ourselves. Inside the tent, we stripped off wet layers down to thermals, the space feeling smaller than it had during setup. "This storm's no joke," I muttered, zipping the flap shut. Bryce nodded, rubbing his arms for warmth. We shared a quick meal of energy bars and whiskey from my flask, his first taste I realized watching him cough and grin. As night deepened, the wind howled outside, shaking the tent walls. We lay side by side on our sleeping bags, the proximity unavoidable in the confined space. Sleep eluded me. Memories flooded in of the years I'd tried to be the father figure Bryce needed. His real dad had been absent, a deadbeat who'd skipped town, leaving Sarah heartbroken. I'd stepped in, coaching his little league games, helping with homework. But lately, Bryce had pulled away, skipping family dinners, burying himself in his phone. I wondered if it was typical college rebellion or something deeper. Then, in the darkness, Bryce spoke. Mark. He always called me by my name when serious. "There's something I need to tell you." His voice trembled. I turned toward him, our faces inches apart in the dim lantern light. "What is it?" He hesitated. Then, "I'm gay." The words hung there, simple yet explosive. My heart pounded. I'd suspected, from the way he dodged questions about girlfriends, the subtle glances at certain friends. But hearing it confirmed stirred a mix of emotions. Pride in his courage, fear for the challenges ahead. I reached out, squeezing his shoulder. "Bryce, that's okay. I support you no matter what." But as our eyes locked, something shifted. His hand covered mine, lingering. The air thickened, charged with an unspoken tension. Was it the isolation, the storm's intimacy? Or had this been brewing beneath the surface? I pulled back, confused, but the seed was planted. The next morning, the rain had cleared, leaving the forest glistening. We packed up and headed deeper into the woods for the hunt. But the confession lingered, coloring every interaction. As we tracked deer trails, Bryce opened up more, about crushes on classmates, the fear of coming out in our conservative town. "What if mom freaks?" he asked. I reassured him, but inside, I grappled with my own turmoil. Sarah was loving but traditional. Church every Sunday, friends in the PDA. How would she react? That evening, around the campfire, things escalated. Bryce shared stories of bullying in high school, kids calling him slurs behind his back. "I felt so alone," he admitted, eyes glistening. I moved closer, wrapping an arm around him. "You're not alone anymore." The hug lasted longer than it should, our bodies pressing in the chill. When we parted, his gaze held mine, questioning. My pulse raced. Guilt warred with an inexplicable pull. This was my stepson, for God's sake. But in that moment, boundaries blurred. Over the following days, the trip became a pressure cooker. We hunted by day, bagging a small buck that Bryce proudly field-dressed. But nights in the tent grew charged. Conversations turned personal. My failed first marriage, his dreams of moving to the city. One night, after too much whiskey, Bryce leaned in. "Mark, have you ever wondered about yourself?" I froze. Truth was, in college I'd had fleeting thoughts, dismissed as curiosity. But now, with him, it felt different, real, terrifying. I pushed away, muttering excuses. But the seed grew. Society's judgments loomed. Stepfamily or not, this was taboo. What would people say? The age gap, the power dynamic, I was supposed to protect him, not complicate his life. Yet, the connection felt authentic, born of shared vulnerabilities. By the trip's end, as we drove home, silence returned, heavier now. Bryce glanced at me. What happens next? I didn't know. But back in Buffalo, the real storm was just beginning. The homecoming was awkward. Sarah greeted us with hugs and questions about the hunt, oblivious to the undercurrents. Bryce retreated to his room, and I busied myself in the garage, unpacking gear while my mind raced. That night, lying beside Sarah, I couldn't shake the memories. The tense intimacy, Bryce's confessions. Guilt gnawed at me. This wasn't just support, it was something more, something forbidden. Over the next weeks, tension built at home. Bryce and I avoided being alone, but stolen glances across the dinner table spoke volumes. Sarah noticed the strain. "You two seem closer after the trip," she said one evening. "Did something happen?" We both mumbled denials, but her eyes narrowed. She was perceptive, a nurse accustomed to reading people. Bryce came out to her soon after, over breakfast one Saturday. "Mom, I'm gay." She paused, fork midway to her mouth, then set it down. Tears welled. "Oh, honey, why didn't you tell me sooner?" She hugged him tightly, whispering assurances. I watched, relieved yet envious of their blood bond. But as days passed, Sarah's support waned into worry. "What about the family? Our church friends?" She confided in me later. "It's not easy in this town." Buffalo's conservative underbelly surfaced quickly. Bryce's college friends were accepting, but at home whispers started. A neighbor's son, once friendly, now avoided him. At school, I overheard colleagues debating those lifestyles, their words laced with judgment. It fueled my internal conflict. Society's norms clashed with my growing feelings. One evening, after Sarah's night shift, Bryce and I found ourselves alone in the living room. "We need to talk," he said, sitting too close on the couch. His hand brushed my knee, sending jolts. "About the trip. It wasn't just the coming out, was it?" I swallowed hard. "Bryce, this is complicated. I'm your stepdad." He leaned in. "But you're not my real dad. And I feel something. Don't you?" The admission hung there. Yes, I did. It was more than paternal affection. It was attraction, emotional and deep. But logic screamed no, the age difference, the family ties. What if it destroyed Sarah? Yet, denying it felt like betraying myself and him. We pulled apart as headlights swept the driveway, Sarah home early. But the seed had rooted. Secret meetings followed. Late-night walks, texts coded in everyday language. Bryce pushed for more, but I resisted, torn between desire and duty. Then came the first major conflict. At a family gathering, Thanksgiving with Sarah's relatives, the topic of alternative lifestyles arose. An uncle ranted about moral decay, eyes flicking to Bryce. I defended him fiercely, my voice rising. "Love is love," I snapped. The room fell silent. Sarah shot me a look, supportive but probing. Later, alone with her, she confronted me. "You're awfully passionate about this." I deflected, but doubt crept into her eyes. Bryce, meanwhile, grew frustrated with my hesitation. "If you care, why hide?" he whispered one night in the hallway. The holidays amplified the drama. Christmas Eve, snow blanketing the streets, we attended midnight mass. The sermon on family values felt like a personal attack. Bryce slipped out early. I followed, finding him in the parking lot, shivering. "I can't do this hypocrisy," he said. I pulled him into a hug, and this time, our lips brushed. A fleeting kiss born of desperation. Panic set in. We separated quickly, but the line was crossed. Guilt consumed me. Was this love or lust disguised? Society would label it predatory, given my position. But Bryce was an adult, consenting. Still, the power imbalance nagged. As winter deepened, cracks widened. Sarah grew distant, sensing the shift. Bryce applied for transfers to out-of-state schools, hinting at escape. I wrestled with choices. Confess and risk everything or suppress and lose him. One stormy night, echoing our tent experience, Bryce confronted me in the basement. "Mark, I love you. Not as a dad, but as a man." The words shattered me. I admitted the same, but added, "This could ruin us all." We agreed to pause, but the damage was done. Rumors spread. A classmate saw us together too often. Sarah's friends whispered. The societal pressure mounted, forcing hard questions. Could love transcend family roles? Or was it a selfish betrayal? By spring, the high school where I taught buzzed with gossip. A parent complained about my influences on students, citing my defense of LGBTQ issues. The principal called me in, warning of scrutiny. At home, Sarah pieced it together during a heated argument. "Is there someone else?" she demanded. I couldn't lie forever. The climax loomed as Bryce prepared to leave for summer internship in California. "Come with me," he urged. But leaving meant abandoning Sarah, my job, our life. Choices weighed heavy, each path laced with pain. Spring brought renewal to Buffalo, but not to our household. Flowers bloomed outside while inside, wilted under unspoken truths. Sarah and I argued more about money, chores, anything but the elephant in the room. Bryce buried himself in packing, his impending departure to San Francisco for an environmental nonprofit internship hanging like a deadline. One evening, after a particularly tense dinner, Sarah cornered me in the kitchen. "Mark, what's going on with you and Bryce? You're different around him." My heart stopped. I denied it, but her eyes, sharp from years of nursing intuition, saw through. "Don't lie to me. I've seen the looks, the late nights." Tears streamed down her face. "Is it romantic?" The confession poured out, the trip, the feelings, the kiss. She recoiled, slapping me hard. "How could you? He's my son." Sobs racked her as she stormed out. Bryce, overhearing, rushed in, face pale. "Mom, it's not his fault. I started it." But that only fueled her rage. "You're both sick. This isn't family. It's betrayal." The house erupted into chaos. Sarah demanded I leave, packing a bag for me. Bryce pleaded for understanding, but she shut him down. "You're confused, manipulated." Neighbors heard the shouts. By morning, word spread through our tight-knit community. Friends called, shocked. The church pastor offered counseling, his tone dripping judgment. I checked into a motel on the city's edge, mind reeling. Was Sarah right? Had I abused my role? Society's lens painted me as the villain, older man preying on vulnerable youth. But Bryce was no child. Our bond felt mutual, profound. Still, the age gap and stepfamily dynamic invited controversy. Online forums I'd skimmed debated similar stories. Consensual or coercive? Bryce visited me the next day, slipping in through the back. "We can't let her dictate this," he said, hugging me fiercely. But doubt crept in. "What about the fallout? Your future?" He shrugged. "I'd rather be true to myself." We talked for hours, weighing options, therapy, separation, even eloping. But reality intruded. My job was at risk. Sarah threatened divorce papers. The community backlash intensified. At school, students whispered. Parents pulled kids from my classes. The principal suspended me pending investigation, citing moral concerns. Buffalo's conservative circles mobilized. Petitions circulated, labeling me a threat to family values. Bryce faced ostracism too. Old friends ghosted him. His internship offer wobbled under scrutiny. Sarah, torn between love for her son and societal norms, sought solace in church groups. They preached forgiveness but condemned the sin. One session, she invited Bryce, hoping to fix him. He refused, storming out. "This isn't a phase, Mom. It's who I am, and who I love." The drama peaked at a family mediation. Sarah's lawyer present, we sat in a sterile office. Accusations flew. Manipulation, infidelity. I defended our feelings as genuine, but Sarah countered with psychology articles on imbalanced relationships. Bryce spoke eloquently. "Love doesn't follow rules. We're not blood related. Why can't we choose?" The mediator suggested counseling, but Sarah balked. "This ends now." She filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Custody wasn't an issue. Bryce was adult, but emotional ties severed. As summer approached, Bryce's departure loomed. "Come to California," he begged again. I hesitated, jobless and shunned. But staying meant stagnation in judgment's shadow. Society's conflicts raged. LGBTQ acceptance clashed with taboo relationships. Was our love valid, or a product of dysfunction? In a final confrontation at the airport, Sarah appeared, eyes red. "If you go with him, you're dead to me." Bryce wavered, then took my hand. "I choose us." We boarded the plane, leaving Buffalo behind. But doubts lingered. In San Francisco's vibrant scene, we built a new life, Bryce thriving at work, me freelancing as a tutor. Yet whispers followed. Stares at our age difference, assumptions of predation. Pride parades celebrated us, but conservative backlash online branded us immoral. Therapy helped unpack the trauma, the stepfamily dynamic, power imbalances. We acknowledged flaws but affirmed our choice. Sarah eventually reached out, tentative emails evolving into calls. Forgiveness budded, slow and fragile. Years passed. Our relationship deepened amid ongoing debates. Friends divided. Some championed boundary-breaking love, others decried ethical lapses. San Francisco welcomed us with open arms, its foggy hills a stark contrast to Buffalo's flat conservatism. Bryce dove into his internship mapping urban green spaces while I pieced together a new career, online history courses, avoiding the scrutiny of traditional schools. Our apartment in the Castro buzzed with life. Rainbow flags outside, neighbors who didn't bat an eye at our hand-holding. But the past haunted. Sarah's divorce finalized quickly. She kept the house, I signed away claims. Phone calls with her were strained at first, accusations giving way to silence. "I miss my son," she'd say, voice cracking. Bryce navigated guilt, torn between loyalty and authenticity. "Did we destroy her?" he asked one night, staring at the ceiling. Societal echoes amplified. Online, Bryce joined LGBTQ forums, sharing our story anonymously. Responses polarized. Supporters hailed us as trailblazers against rigid norms, while critics lambasted the incestuous undertones, ignoring the step relation. "Age gaps in gay relationships are common," one post defended. "But family ties make it creepy," another retorted. Real-life conflicts arose too. At a Pride event, we met allies who embraced us, but a conservative protester shouted slurs, camera flashing. "Perverts ruining families." It stung, reopening wounds. Bryce's work colleagues were progressive, but whispers about his scandalous background surfaced during promotions. My students, virtual and anonymous, occasionally probed, "Sir, what do you think about unconventional relationships?" We sought couples therapy, unpacking layers. The therapist, a kind woman with rainbow pins, challenged us. "Power dynamics linger from your past roles. Have you truly equalized?" We worked on it, Bryce asserting independence, me shedding paternal habits. Intimacy grew emotional, focused on mutual growth rather than forbidden thrill. A turning point came when Sarah visited 2 years in. Tentative at the airport, she hugged Bryce tightly. Over dinner, tears flowed. "I was scared, for you, for us." She admitted church counseling helped her question doctrines. "Love is complicated," she conceded. Toward me, civility reigned, if not warmth. Back in Buffalo, old friends reached out sporadically. Some evolved, attending our commitment ceremony. A small affair on a sunny hill, vows exchanged under clear skies. Others faded, unable to reconcile. The event sparked local media buzz. Stepfamily romance divides community. Articles debated ethics, quoting experts on consent versus taboo. Bryce's career flourished. He led conservation projects, advocating for inclusive policies. I published essays on historical LGBTQ figures, drawing parallels to our journey. But challenges persisted. Adoption dreams dashed by agencies citing our non-traditional setup. Is society ready? We wondered. Flashpoints ignited debates. At a panel on family structures, Bryce spoke, "Blood doesn't define bonds. Choice does." Audience questions probed, "But what about the stepchild's vulnerability?" We answered honestly, admitting initial imbalances but emphasizing growth. Personal growth mirrored societal shifts. Buffalo's community evolved slightly. More pride events, less overt hostility. Sarah remarried, a kind widower who encouraged her reconciliation with us. Yet, controversies lingered. Online trolls targeted us after a viral post. "Grooming disguised as love," they claimed. We countered with our narrative: mutual discovery, adult consent. It fueled broader discussions on LGBTQ rights versus familial ethics. As time wore on, our story became a touchstone. Friends sought advice on coming out, navigating taboos. We cautioned balance, heart versus harm. In quiet moments, doubts resurfaced. Was it worth the pain? Bryce asked during a hike, echoing our hunting trip. I squeezed his hand. For this life, yes. But the question persisted. In a world of evolving norms, where do we draw lines? Decades later, looking back from our quiet home in the Bay Area hills, the journey feels both triumphant and fraught. Bryce, now in his 40s, heads a national environmental NGO, his passion undimmed. I've retired from teaching, focusing on writing memoirs that spark dialogues. Our relationship, weathered by time, stands as testament to resilience. Sarah passed last year, reconciled fully in her final days. "I'm proud of you both," she whispered during a visit. Her acceptance healed old wounds, but the societal scars remain. Debates rage on, same-sex marriage legalized nationwide, yet stepfamily romances still provoke outrage. Our story, shared in podcasts and books, elicits polarized reviews, inspirational versus irresponsible. We've mentored young LGBTQ individuals, emphasizing ethical navigation. Love freely but mind the impacts, we advise. Conflicts arise anew with each generation. Social media amplifies judgments, but also support networks. In reflection, the hunting trip was the catalyst, a storm that forced truths to surface. From tent confessions to cross-country leaps, choices defined us. But was every step just? The ultimate question lingers, inviting debate. In the pursuit of personal authenticity, is it ever justifiable to upend family structures for romantic love, true or false?